Okay, good morning. Um, Good afternoon. Also, good evening. Depends the part of the world you are watching us from. I am Uwazurike Austin, and of course, we're here once again to make a brief talk. A kind of taking a brief look on various mechanisms, talking about various ideologies, various approaches, or what I may call strategies ongoing in the quest for Biafran freedom. So we are going to try our best to see how far we can arrive at a very objective ground, make an objective submission. This broadcast was not pre-announced, but nevertheless, we're just here to get it roll as much as we can. So try as much as possible to get it shared, so that everyone who cares to listen can as well listen. Anyone who cares. So want to look at ideologies, look at also strategies in self-determination. Then we are going to look at some various groups, their own ideology, their own strategies, and perhaps we can come up on a sincere consensus ground to say, I think this might be the best thing, this might not be the best thing. So first of all, we're going to look at ideologies. Everyone talks about ideology. Everyone just hype on ideology. But I want to say this. A good idea, a superb idea, without the right strategy, the right application, is just nonsense. What gives nations or what gives oppressors fear is application of right ideas. And that's why the difference between the developing world and developed world, talking about countries that are still developing or the underdeveloped, permit me to use that word. The difference between the underdeveloped countries and the developed country is not just lack of ideas. It's not lack of idea, but lack of implementations. You might have good ideas. You might have a superb idea. You might have, a mind-blowing ideas. When that idea or ideas are not applied, I'm talking about application here, it turns out to be illusion. Yes, it turns out to be illusion. And this is one common thing I've seen among so-called opinion makers. People tend to marshal out. In fact, let me give you a clear instance, I think, before we advance more. If you study Nigerians' budget, you will see a close to excellent literature presentations. But when it comes to implementation, you find out a zero implementative mechanism. And same applies to freedom fighting. Most times people just talk, but they have zero work mentality. And that is what we're going to dissect. That is what we're going to spend whatever time we have here to discuss. And I always wish to have a kind of objective, especially when it comes to topics like this. I try to have a neutral position so that we can look at issues from critical point of view, from objective point of view, and say to ourselves, hey, we're getting it right here, we're getting it wrong here. So I start from those who were here before IPOB, very, very important. Those people who were here before IPOB, who were here before Nnamdi, Kanu, who were, at the front burner of agitation for Biafra. Let's look at their strategies and see, because let me tell you something, take it or you leave it. Nature does not condone vacuum. Nature itself does not accept vacuum. It doesn't happen. Whenever there is vacuum, somehow, consciously, unconsciously, or consciously, nature replaces a material to cover that space. That is how it is. And why do I say that? You cannot have emergence of another group if the existing group is active. I repeat, you cannot have a replacement to an active structure. It doesn't work that way. You replace what is ineffective. And that brings us to the question, if Masop was effective, if Masop is still active, if Masop is still strategic till now, the emergence of IPOB would not have been there. One, even though IPOB emerged, she would have zero subscribers to her, to the movement. Because whenever there is vacuum, either as a result of ideological failure, automatically you see an organic replacement. Most times it happens within the existing file system. The file system unconsciously, spring up an active replacement. That is just we are asking for Biafra to come out from a file system. That is just how it happens. We are not coming elsewhere into Nigerian system. No, rather we are pulling ourselves out from a failed Nigerian system, and that is how it happens. It's a social phenomenon. It unconsciously happens. When a system fails, within that system there is a kind of bank, a social bank, that spring out a replacement. So if Masop was active, there wouldn't have been any need for the emergence of IPOB. Take it or you leave it. Absolutely, there wouldn't have been, any reason for IPOB. That is one thing. Now, let's look at the strategies, the ideologies of Masop, prior to this time, we understand the ideology that was anchored on Mohammed Gandhi's approach. I think I'm not mistaken, one of the India's pre-independent nationalists in India. And it was all about Masop's approach was anchored on his philosophy, his political philosophy, which is peaceful approach. And Masop tried to sustain that ground. Masop did wonderfully to, keep that ground of pacifist approach, non-belligerent approach, non-bellicose approach. She did wonderfully well in doing that, no doubt about it. And also, as a result of that, she attracted millions of middle-class men. What Masop attracted heavily were middle-class men. Yes, because the people want the freedom, and they saw a movement, especially counting the level of exclusion of the Ndi in Nigerian mainstream. They subscribe to, Masop, just to drag home our demand. So Masop maintained that ground, but that is at the level of ideology. That is what ideology entails. That is a superb ideology. When you say, okay, I want to maintain non-violent approach, I want to be peaceful, it's ideology. They are all wonderful. It's a philosophy. They are wonderful. It's a principle. They are all wonderful. But let's look at, because after having an ideology, the next thing that ought to be in place is strategy. When people talk about strategy, it's just laughable that they don't even understand the etymological concept of what the word they are using is all about. People tend to hastily rush into the usage of English language, but unfortunately, when you spread out the word they are using, you realize that they don't even understand the contextual meaning or meanings of the words they are using. So when you hear people spending time to talk strategy, spending time to run within the word strategy, you find out they don't even know what strategy is all about. So at the level of ideology, Masop never failed. Take note of that. But at the level of strategy, what did Masop put on the table? And like I said, what scares nations or oppressors is not just ideas, because ideas can be stormated. What I mean is that you can make someone who has an idea to just die with that idea. It's possible. People die with the ideas. Yes, people die with millions of ideas, and they got buried. But what makes idea superb, what gives idea teeth, is strategy, implementations. When ideas are implemented, it becomes superb. You understand me? Ideas are good to have, to initiate. It's good to initiate a good idea. But beyond that, it is also very, very important that those who have good ideas should have good strategies to implement it. So that is where the fourth line of Masop's ideology ended. That is where Masop met her Waterloo. Because you have an idea, but you fail to put various indices of implementations on ground. Take for instance, till tomorrow, the leader of Masob failed to initiate resounding media platforms to propagate the idea he has. Now, if you have an idea and you don't have a strong channels of propagating that idea, you are not serious. You are absolutely not serious. In fact, you know nothing about your idea, because any idea that is not communicated out is useless. Any idea that is not disseminated out is just dead. The difference between Dead Sea and other seas is because Dead Sea does not flow out. So it's just like an idea, a guaranteed idea, a limited idea, an encircled idea. And that's why the word described it as a Dead Sea. Not because it's not a sea, but it does not flow out. So any idea that lacks the channels of dissemination is a dead idea. And that is how the ideologies of Masob became moribund. Because they never came up with strategies at which these ideas, they are dependent on the mainstream channels of information dissemination, which is under heavy control of the oppressors. So from the basic requirements, they failed. They failed woefully, because you cannot desire to borrow a voice from your oppressor. It doesn't happen. Just like the slaves expecting the slave masters or those who heavily invested on slave trade to lead the abolitionist or the anti-slave movement. It's so funny. That's exactly that is just the way the best way I think I can describe what Masob envisaged. They were just like the victims of slave trade who were depending on the slave traders to lead the abolitionist movement. That's exactly how the whole thing plays out. And it's so funny because you cannot expect somebody who is gaining from your suppression to all of a sudden preach against it. So at the level of strategy, because when people talk about strategy, I marvel at the deepness of mental, I'm trying to use a fair language here, but something close to mental emptiness, that people don't understand what strategy is all about. They just come just because they feel like speaking, because they feel like, let it be, I say something. But at the long run, you find out that they turn up disgracing themselves, because people like us will sit down and look every single word you're using and see how empty they are. Of course, we recycle it, because we cannot throw it back to you. Rather, we just get them recycled and dump them in the dustbin of history. So Masob had or have good ideology, which is peaceful approach, pacifist method of seeking for Biafra actualization, according to them. But as far as I'm concerned, the foundational structures that we are expected to be in place. One is that If you have a good idea, it's just like some of us who did marketing. No matter how nice your product is, if it's not marketed, if you don't have a good marketing approach, good marketing strategy, that product will be as useless as you could imagine. Also, if you have a bad product or relatively bad product, so to say, and you have a good marketing approach, believe you me, that bad product will have a strategic positioning in the market than the good product that lacks good marketing approach. That's exactly where they got it wrong. That's where Masop idea got moribund. Because you want freedom and you want to depend on the mainstream media controlled by the government to lend you voice. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. Another area, apart from the side of media, another area I think, remember, is a personal submission. I'm taking time to make some analysis. It's a personal submission I'm making. Another area I feel they got it wrong was on the area of disseminating down to various social structures. I will explain. Well, we're talking about strategy. We are talking about how to transform your idea, how to make your idea to reach out to the people, to your targeted audience. Very, very important. Now, another areas I think they got it severely wrong is the area of decentralization. I'm going to social decentralization. I'm going to explain. I'm going to break it down. You know, if you look at the society we find ourselves, you find that apart from having the Biafra population, you also have, within the Biafran population, you have different segments, social segmentations. You have, permit me to use a seismic language, talking about kind of agricultural language. You also have what we call stratifications. Talking about, if you look at a population from holistic point of view, this is a population. In that population, you have what we call population segmentation. You have the women population. In the larger population, you have a women group, you have men group, you have youth group, you also have student groups, you also have clergy group, you also have different segmentations. And to the best of my knowledge, I stand to be corrected. My sub idea was good, but when it comes to engagement, active social engagement based on social segmentation, they have a zero strategy on that. They could not advance the message to the Biafran students. They could not advance the message to Biafran women. They felt everything they have talked about Biafra, then everybody should just came. At the level of supra body, I'm talking about the topmost body, you also have to think about units engagement. That is where they got it wrong. That is where they got it wrong. And that's why it looks as if it's more of a floating movement than we could ever imagine. Yes, Masop is a floating movement. It just concentrated at the level of Ojukwu Library built by Uwazurike. They gathered there, everything else. They refused to initiate the last decentralizing structure, which is establishing down to roots through the arrangement of units, down to students level, down to youth level, down to clergy level. These are ideas, strategies they lacked of. Only God knows why. Such superb ideas were not implemented at the reigning days of Master. Only God knows why. Now, we have talked about social segmentation approach, which was really zero. Another area I have a very serious, frowning on massive approach is on the area of scholarly engagement. Scholarly engagement. I have taken time to go back to a lot of write-ups prior to the emergence of IPOB. A lot of pro-Biafran, write-ups prior to the emergence of IPOB. And I discovered that there was absolutely none. I mean, absolutely none initiated by Masop. Masop refused to attract, be careful of this word. Masop could not attract most educated part of Biafran population who could, pop out a lot of intellectually backed articles for this cause. She never. The only people you can see who tried doing something nice, I must say, are the Ekwenche group. I think they also have their limitations, but they were trying to give intellectual they were trying to give a kind of intellectual approach to the struggle. I'm talking about the point. But in the case of Masop never attracted any intellectual input in the struggle, thereby making the struggle at their own time to be more of Okada riders' thing than sensible people think. I sincerely apologize if that word will offend anyone, because nobody is not important. Everyone is important as far as this struggle is concerned. But we are making a sincere analysis. So Masop could not attract some educated folks for the struggle. So it ended up becoming one of Taos-driven movement. I must say, there were no articles, there were no academic engagement, there were no intellectuals, materials sent across the shore. There were nothing like that. And tell me how you would have intellectuals discussing a Biafra of Masop, a Biafra of Uwazurike, when it is obvious that there is no intellectual impulse other than just I don't know, just it looks more of toutish stuff. So this is one of the things they lacked, and that's why the country, Nigeria, never took them serious, because Nigeria understand that they don't have what it takes to attract international community, because you cannot attract international community into your fear when you don't even have as simple as Twitter account to engage. You don't even have email to engage. You've not even traveled to meet any Western politician, because you know you don't have what it takes to sit to have a roundtable or tete-a-tete discussions with them. So these are some of a serious area of concern when it comes to strategy that Maso does not own. And no wonder, I must say this, life, there is this natural law that lies attract lies. What do I mean? If you are a lover of knowledge, you would want to key into any movement that embraces knowledge. It's natural. If you are a hater of knowledge also, you might find yourself too struggling to survive in the midst of researchers. It is a natural thing. You go for what you like. That is, and no wonder you hardly see professors, intellectuals, academicians, and other sound minds. You hardly see them at the circle of Masop. The reason being that the leader of Masop, unarguably, which is Uwazurike, he's even scared of camera. Yes, he fears camera a lot because he understands his intellectual limitation. Yes, he understands how intellectually backward he is. So all he does is to avoid that side of the struggle. And let me tell you, how would you attract Western supporters when you are avoiding, or how do you think you can just influence opinions in Western world? Or how do you think you can attract Western sympathies or citizens of all these countries to your plight when you are even scared of mediums of communication? So you can now understand how we would have been magma rolling within a stupid umbrella and be on hopelessness. I realized one thing, and I must say it, like I was saying, lies, attracts lie. It's just the way it is. If you watch these strategies we are just outlining now, you find out that not because Masop would not love to have them in place. Make no mistake about this. Not because they would not love to have these things in place, because everyone would like to have such popularity that IPOB is having. Everyone would wish they are. But the truth remains, you cannot give what you don't have. It's too frustrating to try to give what you don't have. Now, let's fall back to, we have just discussed ideas on Masop. We have equally discussed the strategies, and we discovered they have a good idea, which is peaceful approach towards the actualization of Biafra, but wrong strategies, because absolutely nothing is giving that idea teeth. Now let's look at another character in the whole line, which is Asari Dokubo approach. You know, Asari Dokubo to me seemed to be the most confusing character. It's never an insult. I am making objective analysis of his person. You know, why I say he seemed to be the most confusing character, because to the best of my knowledge, he was, or will I say he is, you know, he was a fighter for so-called Niger Delta. Remember, according to him, his ideology is the approach of Adakaboro. In fact, Asari Dokubo's idea anchors on Adakaboro's approach, which is strictly on Niger Delta. And that was the basement at which he formed his group. Make no mistake about it. But as times keep on going, we begin to see a move from Adakaboro's philosophy to Ojukwu's philosophy, because Biafra initiative, we all know, was propelled, was given a large pronouncement by late Ikemba. So, but all of a sudden, we are seeing Asari Dokubo, who made his money, his fame, you know, under the anchor and philosophy of late Adakaboro, which is resource control. We are not seeing him dumping Adakaboro's philosophy. This inconsistency, a very deep one. Dumping Adakaboro's philosophy on Niger Delta to embracing of Ojukwu philosophy in Biafra. What does that tell you? That tells you that at the level of ideology, Asari Dokubo doesn't even know what he wanted in the first place. He started with Adakaboro, permit me to use the word, Adakaborism. And when he saw, listen, so that you understand what actually is playing out, because we are making a very serious holistic analysis. When he saw that the concept of Adakaborism seemed to be highly Ijonized, you should forgive my languages. When Asari Dokubo saw, having made money through the Adakaborism, which is resource control, he was settled with contracts of safeguarding the pipelines, and he discovered that it looks that approach has faded away because amnesty settled that. Pipeline contract settled that. He does not want to remain at the background. He does not want to be relegated. He does not want himself to still be at the background. Do you know what he did? He now looked at the wider vision, that it looks the people are of Biafra than the myopic concept of resource control. And he discovered, you know, some of these guys want to be relevant every day. It is their nature. Each time their relevancies are fading off, they look for the trending moment to key in. Now, do you know what he did? He now came up and said, okay, he never identified with Uwazurike from Adam. He never. In fact, when he was arrested for resource control, Niger Delta. And Uwazurike was arrested for asking for Biafra, which later on he made peace and he continues his life. Now, Asari discovered that from the ongoing Biafran pursuit, as spearheaded by Nnamdi Kanu, it loses his own methodology, his own idea, his own philosophy on resource control is not enjoying a lot of popularity, is not enjoying a lot of respect, is not enjoying a lot of support, and haven't known, that he has been settled. But he needed to still play within the gallery. All he did was make few messages on Nnamdi Kanu, how nice he is, how good he is, how him is more Biafran, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? He was allowed to speak on Radio Biafra platform. Speaking on Radio Biafra, there was this early thought that because they understand the politics of you gather the people, you make some noise, then you get settled. You understand me? And to some of them, they felt, yeah, this guy needs support, and Nnamdi Kanu needs support now, so that by the time he will be settled by federal government, then we can have our own share from the settlement. It's just a kind of gambling mentality. Let's identify with him now. Perhaps he's been settled. We can now have our own court. Because, what they do is that they gather population, they gather the people and trade them with politicians. Yes, they manage to have, it's just like, ask any politician, they will tell you. They will raise groups and tell the politician, see, in your state, I have about 50,000 people, and they can vote for you. But look at what it's going to cost you. So that was what the mentality Asari had. And remember then, Anambra election was first approached. Of course, meanwhile, he confessed that he told Nnamdi Kanu, let them reach understanding with Anambra state government so that they won't boycott. But Nnamdi Kanu refused. He said it. He said it on clip. He said that was the beginning of his problem with Nnamdi Kanu, that Nnamdi Kanu never listened to him over Anambra election. They have this mentality that if they can have reasonable followers, then they can bargain with the politicians, get the money and transfer the loyalty of the people, or the loyalty of the people. So that's the mentality. But he felt Nnamdi Kanu seemed not to understand how the whole thing plays. He was disappointed because he was coming from the ground of business as usual. And this guy Nnamdi Kanu himself was coming on the ground of liberation. And the ideological differences started having issues. That was how he confessed it. He said it on camera that was the genesis of his problem with Nnamdi Kanu, because Nnamdi Kanu could not see his reason. He said it, that he could not see his reason on Anambra election. So you now understand what we're talking about here. You now understand how ideological differences affected Asari Dokubo's lasting relationship with IPOB. So he himself was coming on the ground of resource control, and besides, not really resource control, because if you look at his own approach of resource control, it's all about reach agreement with the government, get a settlement, and get on with life. So when he discovered that the new government threatened to terminate a lot of contracts, even revoke amnesty program. You remember that story when Buhari was making a lot of threats that it's not viable to keep on paying all those things. So what Asari, his mind or ideology of playing within a gallery, he felt that the best thing he ought to have done is to identify with a popular movement. Take note of that. Was to identify with a popular movement. And that popular movement was to be on IPOB's platform and give condition for the government. And of course, he was allowed to speak and he felt he has arrived. But where the problem arose was at Anambra, when he felt he could bargain. And the visionary Amazon said, no. And that was how the problem began. So when you now look at somebody who had background from resource control, who gained huge amount of money from that project, he never used it to develop his homeland. Rather, he took the money to build a university in Benin Republic and lavished the money elsewhere, not even putting to the host community, the community at which name was used in attracting such money. Rather, he repatriated it elsewhere. Then such a person is coming today to tell you that he wants Biafra. To me, it amounts to stupidity to believe such fellow. So the problem you're seeing today, everything you're seeing today, if he tells you he wants Biafra, look at the genesis. Just look at where he was coming from. Look at levels at which he has passed through. And how will you, believe he knows what he's talking about? How will you believe he knows what he's talking about? Very, very important. Very, very important. So these are some of the ideology, because if idea is wrong, result will be wrong. Make no mistake about that. If idea is right and the strategy is wrong, result will be wrong. These are logical conclusions. So on the side of Uwazurike, idea was right, which is the idea which was anchored on the philosophy of Muhammad Gandhi, peaceful approach or pacifist approach to self-determination. It was wrong. But what of the strategy? The strategy was wrong. So how do you expect right result? Absolutely not. You can now understand what we are talking about. So when idea is wrong, the result will be wrong. When idea is right, but the strategy is wrong, the result will be wrong. Now let's look at IPO. That is the final movement we're going to analyze the ideas and that strategies. Then we'll come to the end of today's program. We have just done on Masov, we have just done on Asari, the Kubos approach. Then we have to move on. Now let's look at IPOB's idea. What is IPOB's idea? Self-determination. Through which method? Peaceful approach. Peaceful approach. And what of the strategies on ground? Now, people, like I said, people tend to talk about strategy without knowing, of course, what the word stands for. So let's look at, the strategies. Did IPOB build an independent information dissemination channel to propagate her idea? The answer is yes. In fact, if you're gagged media-wide definitely you're strangulated. If I take away mic from you, I have succeeded in taking away your voice. And this is where these guys don't understand. This is one of the strategies that IPOB planned from ab initio that is resounding, deeply resounding. Take for instance, Donald Trump is suffering what he's suffering today because of the grip of mainstream media on the people. You know, but he was so lucky enough to have embraced his Twitter account from the time he married. In fact, that wisdom is superb, because if not that Donald Trump decided to speak to Americans via his Twitter account, via other social media accounts of his, believe you me, he would have been the most unpopular president of the United States. Because if he says yes on press briefing, the liberal control media will cut off where he say yes and said is no. They will terribly edit it and present him on a bad light. And same applies to, Nnamdi Kanu sat down. We are talking about strategy. For those people who talk about strategy without even knowing what strategy is all about. But Nnamdi Kanu understood that he cannot have a successful mainstreaming of Biafran cause without first of all building a formidable media platform. And how? How did he achieve that? He never concentrated on the conventional media approach, which is the way we talk about television and TV station, those traditional approaches of information. He never concentrated. Do you know what he did? He began to build on less regulated media platform. I didn't say zero regulated, less regulated, like Twitter, like Facebook. So he began to build on those platforms. Not only building on that platform. Do you know what he did? He understood that until he raised soldiers on this platform, that Biafra can never be known. He began to say, have you opened Twitter account? Go and open a Twitter account. You have Facebook account. And guess what? There was mass opening of these accounts, not because the people wanted to open on their own, not because they were interested, but they opened because they were educated on how to do it. And they opened for the sake of Biafra. And to today, it remains the worst thing that has ever happened to the Nigerian state and her allies. Our grip on social media platform remains the nightmare. In fact, Nigeria in this 2021 budget, Nigeria budgeted about was it 500 and something millions. You understand? Nigeria budgeted 500 and something millions of naira to fight IPOB on social media only. On social media, I'm not talking about the one of Signal. On social media, I'm going to study the current budget. They budgeted. So, such consign, such approach can never be relegated to be non-strategic, except one is living in the world of delusion. Because that strategy of media, okay, somebody's even correcting me, says about 6 million plus. Okay, 6 million plus, good. You can now understand how that single strategy Sorry, breakdown of network. Anyway. Okay, so my phone. So you now understand what I'm talking about here. How would a nation, how would a nation budget such amount of money just to fight a unit? You know, when we talk about this media, this thing, you should understand we are just talking about a unit that is, you see, and the worst, one of the best way to cripple a giant is to create what we call multi-dimensional war fronts, and that is what Nnamdi Kanu is. We are talking about strategy, so invite those guys who always talk about strategy, who don't, so that they can be schooled on the art of strategy. Now, you know, if Nigeria government is budgeting 650 million just to fight a social media unit of IPOB, 650, and they now set another millions for signals, FM signals. Now, when you plus this amount, you find out that already Nigeria have wasted close to a billion naira chasing a segment of IPOBs too. You understand? I think those of us who are economists will understand the problem this country is going to face. Because this money, to just have a solid hospital is about 25 million. To build a standard healthcare center is about 25 million naira. And this country is spending 1.something billion not to fight all IPOB's angle. This is just to fight a unit. Because if you look at the way Nnamdi Kanu structure the media, we are talking about strategy. So get those guys who talk about strategy so that they will understand what strategy is all about. Now, federal government is budgeting 650 million for social media, then budgeting another money for FM signal, which is just over 1 billion, fighting for a section of the media. Because if you look at IPOB media structure, for those of us who are in the media, you find out that there are social media warriors. And when you come to social media warriors, it's also segmented. There are Twitter wizards, Twitter warriors. These guys are the ones who make sure that world leaders don't sleep, because they flood their Twitters with millions of messages before they wake up. Whether they want to hear it or not, they hear. Now, there are another section, which is Facebook warriors. In fact, they control what happens in Facebook. They decide what trend in the day. This is just a unit of IPOB's media. Then you now come to those who are on websites, article publications. You now see Biafran Times, Biafran Herald, Umuchukwu, and countless of them, just to mention but a few. Now you are talking about fighting the Twitter and Facebook. What happens to those on website article publications? Now, what of those who print the newspapers Biafrans are reading every day on newspaper? So are you not going to budget for them also? What of the community radio app? Are you not going to make a budget on it also? So you now find, it's really funny. Now you now find out that it looks somebody just waking up to reality. And that is strategy. And also you have to understand that that strategy, was not planned today. It was planned from the beginning. It was an ab initio project. So how dare do you say it's not strategic? You know, that is just how funny it is. That is how funny it is. So you can now understand when people say we are not strategic, they are indirectly removing attention from us talking at their zero knowledge about what self-determination is all about. So media-wise, as far as African continent is concerned, there is no platform, there is no movement that controls media voices than not. In fact, a simple way to know it is that, you know, normally people expected us to fight a defensive media war, and that was how it started anyway. But today, we have conquered our own jurisdiction, our primary constituency, which is Biafran population. We are now, as it stands now, taking the battle to their own constituency. And that's why I see them going haywire to make sure they budget before we wreck down what is left. You know, formally they thought we are just going to concentrate. They know they have lost the battle, media battle in terms of our constituency. They came with BBC Igbo, they came with all forms of blah, blah, blah. We crushed them. We disabled them. We relegated them. We made them, we forced them to go to monopoles. And today, having conquered our environment media-wise, they understand the danger that is facing them because they have seen that if channels, for instance, publishes something, go to the comment section, you find out that 90% of the comments are coming from Biafrans. And those comments, if that publication is against us, we turn that publication upside down and present the true picture. So to them, they are not comfortable because Ministry of Education goes through comment sections. DSS goes through comment sections. The military, all the security apparatus, all the strategists, you know, policy initiators go through the section, comment section. So what they do is that, including international observers, they go through this comment section. So what they do is this. Whenever they see the way we take charge, we control opinion on all these comment sections, whether Vanguard, whether Punch, whether channels, name them. It now gives them worry because they understand that the non-Biafrans are being impregnated with an idea as a result of what we are commenting. They see it and it's worrying them. And that's why you see them budgeting over 1 billion naira to fight just that angle, social media angle. Perhaps they are going to enrich to make Mike Zuckerberg to be 1 million naira richer because his effort we've been hearing all this while. So you can now understand how it plays out. You can now understand the strategy. And let me tell you, for those of us who say strategy, what is more strategic than creating artificial war for your enemy? Whether we like it or not, I think we have succeeded in creating artificial war theaters for Nigeria. We are creating to Nigeria a multiple channels of wastages, creating to them multiple fronts. They will keep on wasting their scarce resources. Before you know, she will fail naturally without a gunshot. I think that should make sense to you. Because the 1 billion naira you are to waste chasing IPOB media could have just built one of the best roads, could have given electricity, but you just want to waste it. And let me tell you, immediately you spent that 1 million chasing what you cannot even stop. Do you know the implication? The people who would have insulted IPOB, let's assume you use that 1 billion to fix Enugu Road. People, you have a divided opinion. Yes, we have divided opinion. Because people will say, Enyegonai road, let's support that. You understand me? But because you channel the money on what is not even worth channeling, those people will now be seeing reason to even identify with us. It's a simple arithmetic. I'm not revealing secret for them because they cannot do it. What is most important to them is to share the money because they understand what is happening. So this is a wonderful strategy. This is a superb strategy. Now let's look at in terms of engagements, because we are analyzing every group. Let's look at in terms of engagements. Very, very important. In terms of engagement, is IPOB engaging? Because Masol ended up ended the activities in visiting Uwazurike house as a czar, as the king. He just relaxed there. They will visit and they will talk blah blah and that. They don't have engagement mechanism. Let's not talk about engagement. Is IPOB engaging? Is IPOB engaging? Now, as far as engagement is concerned, IPOB have what I call fierce engagement. Yes, she has fierce, aggressive engagement approach. You understand me? She maintains a very aggressive engagement mechanism. Now, look at how IPOB have been doing superb. Look at how IPOB have been doing superb in terms of engagement. IPOB did not engage the Biafran people on the wider umbrella only. Do you know that IPOB segmented? IPOB have IPOB students, Biafran students engagement, which these guys don't have. IPOB have IPOB women engagement, Biafran women engagement. And surprisingly, we also have engagement of the clergy, like the Supreme Clergy Council of Biafra, BCC, and a lot of them. IPOB also have intellectuals engagement. There is no university in Nigeria and overseas that IPOB is not engaging her intellectuals. This is what people don't know. And tell me how such an act is unstrategic. Tell me how such strategic. I now see, whenever you see Gaba Shehu at Boston, feeling severely concerned over IPOB's approach, they understand the efficacy of this approach. They duly understand it. They duly understand it. So when it comes to engagement, IPOB engage even down to the land of immortals. Yes, she engages down to the land of immortals. That is how offensive and aggressive her engagement approach and mechanisms are. So also, even every single one of them who are criticizing, who are destructively criticizing IPOB, got engaged by IPOB. That is how amazingly it is. Because if IPOB have been running mushroom or Douglas Road approach of muscle, most of these guys wouldn't have known about Biafra, including those who are destructively criticizing us, wouldn't have talked about this. They wouldn't have known anything about it. But because somebody took it as a responsibility to bring the message to their doorsteps, you cannot see everybody wants to throw up opinion. So when it comes to engagement, we engage. Now, let's look at our level of engagement in terms of engaging international players. Yes, elders engagement, very, very important. We also have elders engagement. We have children engagement. In fact, we engage. There's a vicious circle engagement. That is our approach. Now, let's look at the issue of international engagement. To the best of my knowledge, Uwazurike has never approached any international lobbying firm. I stand to be corrected. Neither is Asari Dukubo, who is known as running a pipeline guide group, ever engage international organization. Now, I have too many articles published, not by us, but by international writers, Voice of America, Department of States, and all the rest of them. I have them in quantum, making reference to IPOB. That is wonderful. And also, mind you, these individuals I mentioned earlier would love to engage some of these world-renowned groups and individuals. But why they cannot achieve that is because no man can walk beyond his mental strength. You understand me? No man can walk beyond his mental strength. Just imagine, just have a mental picture. Just imagine Asari Dukubo meeting a US senator. Is he going to be shouting to him the way he shouts? With poor and unconstructive English language. Now, what of Nwanna, the Uwazurike himself? Just tell me. Just tell me. So, because they don't have the context to engage international, they limited the Biafran struggle within the local vicinity. That is just. So just you imagine Asari dropping his big tummy, or just imagine Uwazurike. These guys cannot. So, but what I don't like is anything you cannot offer. Sorry, anything I cannot offer, but you have it. I should commend you for having that. So most of them feel highly jealous seeing the human capital index disposed by nature to Nnamdi Kanu, and they feel so bad. They feel so bad. He is intellectually blessed. He is blessed in terms of wisdom. He is blessed in terms of outlook. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. There's absolutely nothing anybody can do about it. You understand me? So, but instead of them to appreciate, oh goodness me. Okay, just let's be sincere. Imagine Asari Dukubo on suit. Just imagine him on suit, then and with the staff, as he always hit it. Then with the hat, he always wear on suit, and he'll be hitting, addressing international lobbying group, telling them, if we want make we scatter them, anything we want. These are, people sometimes are very, very funny, very funny. So in terms of engagement, we are doing a good engagement, and the federal government has attested to that twice. They have acknowledged it twice, not once. Not once, not just, they have they have acknowledged us. They have acknowledged that IPOB have been lobbying aggressively all over the world. You can understand what I'm talking about. You can understand what I am talking about. And also, acknowledge not knowing the source of our money. You can now understand what we are talking about. So we have the idea and we are strategic. We are surgical in operation. That is all about it. We are surgical in operation. We are surgical in operation. So if anyone is coming to talk about strategy, I wonder, is this strategy, in fact, what is even strategy? Is this strategy of let all of us turn to estate developers? I don't know. Just in fact, sometimes I have taken time these few days, to think deeply. What have these guys, what footsteps have they offered to us that we can say, okay, this is what commended? Can we absorb this? Uwazurike just, all he showed us is how to go get money, then build estates, then remain there and be answering all forms of titles, remain comfortably. He has never even accepted that freedom fighting have a price, that it can even make you uncomfortable. What of Asari? Nothing. What he has only showed us is how to ginger, then they give you pipeline contract, then you relax. What has Nnamdi Kanu showed us? He has showed us how to research. He has showed us that freedom fighting comes with a price, not just jail, that it gives you discomfort, that you cannot even sleep where you would love to sleep at. He has shown us that it can even cost you the lives of your parents. And of course, he has shown us that before you talk, you research. And people like us who are discipled by him, that is one of the wonderful mental assets he has imputed in us, because we research before we come, not coming to hit back, and life, ends. No. So that is how much we can talk, because we have already spent 1 hour 18 minutes so far. That is how long we can talk. So when anyone tells you about strategy, share this program to them. Share this program to them. And finally, also, somebody said, I think I heard somebody said, Trump knows nothing about this. So Trump knows nothing about this. And I ask, is it the responsibility of Trump to know about Biafra, or is the responsibility of Biafrans to bring the issue of Biafra to the notice of Trump? You see how mentally docile some people is. Trump knows. Do we own ourselves the responsibility to propagate this message to Trump knows it, or Trump on his own will come and know it? Anyway, sometimes I discovered that all these guys seek a way to extract information, hopefully, and hand over to those who send them. So I want to thank you for joining. Please share to those, especially the non-strategic elements. They have to hear about this. Thank you. Also, go to our YouTube page, Chika Austin. Please do the subscription. We are trying to use that page as a backup ahead of any day Facebook might decide to take us off, as they have been doing. So check YouTube. I will also upload this program there. I will upload this program there also. So go to our YouTube, check for Chika Austin, then subscribe so that we build a defense. So from here, I want to say thank you. I'm Uwazurike. Keep us, preserve us, and above all, grant us freedom. From here, I say bye and do enjoy yourself.